Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Beer Blather 251 Lessons Not Learned. Overwhelmed by a deluge of bad news and what is beginning to look like a tidal wave of rejection of woke policies from the US to Germany, Canada, Italy, Argentina, France, and elsewhere, with socialists trading water in Spain and in the UK, the purveyors of woke stupidity and social masturbation have decided they know what went wrong. Did you know that, Thomas? They didn't
No,
tack to
no.
the left enough. They didn't tack to the left enough. If only Kamala Harris had been a trans zebra, or Germany had eliminated all sources of energy. We're fine with that. In fact, when the left does not learn the hard lessons of political defeat, they only make the road back to sanity easier. Let the new president of Mexico, an old terrorist from the M19, join forces with her old terrorist boss in Colombia, with Maduro, Díaz Canel, Lula and Bocic in a new axis of imbeciles in South America, or Latin America, or the lost continent, who cares? Let Russia, China, and Iran persist in their axis of evil as their economies tank, their militaries collapse, and their dreams of regional hegemony go straight into the crapper of history. Let Democrats dream of a blah blah AOC ticket in 2028. Bring it on! The world is on the cusp of major and beneficial change. Let them make it easier. This is Sol Montes Bradley, the largest human repository of useless information, still from my golden cage in Florida. And right there, let me see if I can see this because I always get it wrong. Yeah, right there is Thomas Victor. Hello, Thomas, from Californication, the patient victim of Governor Gruesome, and I should say the highest degree of stupidity in the nation, still patiently waiting for his beard to come back. And it, the way you're wearing your non-beard cover, it looks like Biden wearing a mask, with the nose out.
Yeah,
Remember that? I
everybody,
always thought it was fun.
everybody in California who still wears a mask wears them this way. So it's ridiculous. I went to the urologist on the 17th, and he came in and he saw me with the mask. He said, "Oh, I'll go get my mask," and I said, "No, no, 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 no. It's uh um it's purely artistic because I accidentally shaved off my beard. This guy has a beard." And he says that he got married when he was in medical school, and he's had a beard for the last 15 years. And he's been married for 10 years, and his wife only knew him with a beard. And last year, she'd always ask him to shave off his beard at least once so she could see what he looked like. And she got him a Halloween costume that would require him to shave off his beard. So finally he said, okay. He shaved off his beard and he walked in to present himself. And the first thing his wife said was, "How long is it going to take for you to grow back your beard?"
To grow it back.
So
Who are you?
he understood exactly why I'm wearing this mask. I've had a beard since I was 18, and I still haven't gotten over the shock of standing in front of the mirror and going, and
Ouch.
just sitting there going, "Did I just shave off half my beard with one stroke?" Yeah, I did. I thought about going on
The power of technology.
Oh, it's my one little vanity. I have to have a beard to cover my face. That's all. People used to tell me, "Cut off your beard so you'll look younger." But I mean,
Who wants
well, I'll look 55
it?
instead of 62. Big deal.
They still ask me for an ID when I buy alcohol in the supermarket. Imagine if I looked younger.
No, I mean it's. I'm not obsessed with youth. I they have ads, and they have ads on YouTube every now and then. It says like the best upcoming movies for 2024, starring Jillian Sebastian. Like, oh, that's wonderful. Who the hell is Jillian
Who's
Sebastian?
just, who's that? Yeah.
And you know, all these movies come and go. They tank. The only movies, I mean, I know you made a comment. You asked me, are you still watching Korean stuff?
Yes.
I'm perfectly happy with Korean limited TV series and movies because they cover all bases. They have romantic comedies, they have horror, they have mysteries and thrillers, they have drama, they have everything. And the problem with American, um, the voices of the actresses are so annoying. It's you see a woman who's closer to 30 than she is to 20, and she's going, and it's just like, I'm sorry, ma'am, I can't do it. I can't do it. Um,
No, it's to me it sounds like Invasion of the Valley Girls.
well, when I was driving off to the urologist, I had the radio on, and they announced that San Francisco had just hired. I forgot her official position. She's the weight discrimination czar, and she's a massively overweight woman, and she sounds exactly like Moon Zappa in her song Valley Girl from 1980. And her point, as she's created all these acronyms for certain situations, and she was describing that if you're with a group of people at a restaurant and it's somebody's birthday and they offer you a slice of cake and you ask if you can have a smaller slice of cake, that could be construed as a hate crime. And I was stunned because after the Democrats suffered this massive political loss to Donald Trump and the Republicans, in San Francisco, they created a position where they're going to try and force feed people cake, a real government position where the city is going to try and force feed people cake. And it thrilled me all the way down to my toes because it shows me that they haven't learned anything, and they are going to go even further to the insane horizon. And
Oh, yeah. It reminds me. I saw today or yesterday this incredible elephant of a woman, a tub of lard, that is launching a movement to force airlines to adapt the size of their seating to plus passengers. I mean, you see the woman; she takes a three-seater just for herself, and her idiotic statement is that airlines should accommodate balls of lard that take three seats for themselves and give them more leg room for the same price, of course, because it's not their fault. They're larger. And so she wants to pay $58 for a round trip between Miami and New York, occupying three seats, and everybody should be happy for it.
well, okay, if the airlines accommodate her with every seat, that means they have to cut down. They're going to lose 2/3 of their passengers for per flight, which means they're going to have to increase their ticket prices
Right.
by 200% or more.
Essentially, what she wants is the rest of us to pay for the extra space for her fat ass.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, I would suggest that she be given a large sofa inside an LD3 container in the belly.
Well, see, I've seen this may be the same woman. I saw her going down the aisle and she could barely fit down the aisle. And it used to be my mother and I flew on a plane once and a man sat down next to us and he called a stewardess over and he asked for a seatbelt extension. And they brought this short extension that had a buckle
Mm-hmm.
on either end. And he pulled his seatbelt out to this furthest extent and attached this.
Yeah.
I mean, huge. If there'd been a disaster, we would have died because he literally had to wedge himself into the seat. But it's I think about this a lot. American leftists say that the entire world must accommodate the issues of the individual who, okay, people complain about, oh, we can't have any peanuts. Well, I knew my best friend in college had a peanut allergy, and one peanut would kill him, like on the spot.
Yep.
So that's a little bit different. But if you weigh 500 pounds and you're demanding that the entire world accommodate you as a 500-pounder, no, you should be just told no. If you are claiming that you are crippled by the big three, depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder from something, the world is not required to accommodate you.
No, no, I mean, I'm sorry for you, tough. Life threw you a curveball, but, we have special transportation for cattle. You don't have to go on an economy seat. Buy yourself a first class seat. Buy two
And
first class seats so you have one per chick. I don't care. It's your problem. Years ago, I used to take flights from San Juan to Aguadilla. A tiny airline called Crown Air. And Crown Air used to fly small Cessnas, four passengers, six passengers, eight passengers tops. Number one, when you were going to board, they had to weight you.
hmm,
The exact weight of each passenger. And depending on your weight, you would sit up front. If you weighted over a certain limit, you had to pay extra because there was a definite weight limit to what the plane could carry. It's not unlike paying extra for extra luggage, except that you have it around your waist. What's so difficult to comprehend? It costs more money, it burns more fuel to lift a half a fucking ton than 100 pounds. It- What's the deal? By the way, having another Chinese hack. Hopefully, it'll fix itself. So, we're back. This is going to be fun. Can you hear me?
yes,
Oh,
I'm having trouble here. Hold on. Keep on talking.
yeah, I find it ridiculous. So, their fat ass, their pronouns, their phobias, their
Let's see who's lagging. Is it me or you?
both at the same time. They're saying that out there, I'm coming in and out, and you're staying in all the time. So I don't know. It may be a local problem, but my internet connection right now is uh, doing just fine. It's
Okay. I wonder if you should reboot.
it, it, we are doing fine.
Okay.
It's fine. Why not? So anyway, so Saul is having dramatic pauses, they say over there. I like the way Kakkonen takes this in stride. Anyway, so other than Fatsos trying to impose their big chicks on aircraft passengers, um, have you ever had to sit in a plane for 8 hours with a bowl of blubber overflowing the armrests?
Yeah, and also people putting their feet up on my armrest, and you know that was a new one. I didn't think people were at that point. I was at a window seat, and this leg came through, and so suddenly here's this bare foot with this leg, and it's like, what do you do? The type of person who's going to do that isn't the sort of person you could say, excuse me, could you not do that? Because they thought about doing that and they did it in the first place. So you know, I it was a short flight, um, so I didn't say anything. But I don't like flying. I've never liked flying, but I certainly don't like flying now because of the behavior of the passengers, and whether they're gigantically fat, or whether they're putting their feet up on either side of you, or sometimes they put their feet up behind you like this.
Oh
They
yeah,
um
I pull all sorts of nasty tricks on those people. I have been known to accidentally drop my hot coffee on somebody's foot.
yeah.
And it's, what are you doing? Oh, I'm sorry about that. By the way, what were your feet doing there? You shouldn't have had any problem. Once a child was kicking my seat all the time, I turned and gave him the look,
Mhm.
you know, and the child cowered against his mummy. And mommy looks at me and says, "What? What? Don't you like children?" And I say, "Sure, grilled with ketchup."
Yeah, exactly.
And
No,
and for the rest of the flight, she didn't let her anywhere near my seat.
well, see, this is the thing: is they know the kid is doing this. They know everybody knows what they're doing. I learned later in life that there's no such thing as actual obliviousness. People aren't oblivious. They do everything deliberately, and you know, a lot of them will claim obliviousness. Oh, I didn't know, but I've come to the conclusion that any
They
form
do.
of obliviousness, like a coworker who stinks, that's a power play. That's not somebody being oblivious. That's a power play. That's somebody who's forcing their stink on you, and you're not supposed to do anything about it, because you're not supposed to hurt that person's feelings. No, you go to human resources and you say, I can't work next to this guy because he stinks. He smells like a rotting corpse that crapped its pants before it died. So send him home and tell him he can't come
Eh,
back until he doesn't stink anymore.
no, God, I spent a lot of years working in supervising, owning airlines where employees are in close contact with passengers. A, a flight attendant would bother the other?
Mhm.
Hello? No. They don't do that. You're given an admonition, and if you do it again, you're out of a job. What do you think you are? A keeping Hollywood?
Well, okay, there are several actors who are notorious for stinking, and I learned from being a music journalist in Hollywood for 10 years, it's a power play. Um, they are imposing their stink on you, and their thought process is, I'm doing this because I can. And you never stopped. And you know, if somebody shows up and they stink, then you have to say, I'm sorry, I can't do this work with you because
No.
you stink. You have to call them on
Waiters?
the bench.
Waiters? Now, I know it's different in France. I think I told you the story before. And if there's anybody else that I told the story before, but uh, I once had a little bit of a problem with Meunier, of all things, in France.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a good point to remember where I was. Let me restart this and see if we can do it better, okay?
Mm-hmm. It's all is off into the ether. Um, it's really amazing technology. I love technology, but when it doesn't work, it really pushes my buttons. I get really angry when technology doesn't work. I'm one of those people who's like, they have a very short fuse when it comes to technology that doesn't work, like power outages or you know when computers don't work, for example. You came back frozen and then you unfroze.
I'm not frozen. I'm just mesmerized. I hope it works so as not to push your buttons. But anyway, so I was at the Concord Lafayette. I'm having a vertigo attack. The hotel is spinning around me. I pass out. I wake up in a hospital room. Incidentally, with a little fucking dwarf with a big mustache, who was the head of gastroenterology at the Paris Sorbonne, and he wanted to take my appendix out. Meunier, vertigo attack, he wanted to open my gut.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember telling him it doesn't feel like appendix, it doesn't hurt. Well, sometimes it doesn't hurt, monsieur. So, but, if I do have appendicitis and it bursts, are you going to take me to surgery or let me die? No, in that case, I'll take you to surgery. Good. Let us wait. And after 3 days, they actually let me out because I didn't have anything because they didn't figure out the Meunier thing. But anyway, I'm in my bed, and these a very old room, high ceilings, high doors, uh, metal windows, very drab looking place. And in comes a nurse, and this nurse is, I could hear celestial music because she was gorgeous. She was like the best Vogue cover ever. Just walked into my room. I never, ever had a beautiful nurse tend to me before. So I'm all giddy. Imagine full blooded American male in Paris. I'm 30 years old, and and this vision comes into the room. It's like, thank you, God. And she comes and gets busy around the room and this and that and talks to me and flirts a little bit. And it's like, what? And then all of a sudden, by the way, did I mention she had a most wonderful chest? She had two tits, both of them in the right place and the right size, with a little bit of a ecote here, so you could see the insinuation of the goodies. And she's doing something on my night table and looking for something, probably a thermometer, and sees it on the other night table. And instead of walking around the bed, she stretches to grab it. And I'm already thanking every deity known to mankind as her tits approach my face. But before the tits got there, her armpit did. And you know that beard that you don't have?
Mm.
You could make one with that armpit. It was like the beard of Aaron that ran down to the skirt of his garments. And it smelled, oh my God, like the concentrated sweat, garlic, onion, and farts of an entire city. Just as that came in, long before the tits arrived, my head was inside the pillow and I wanted to be swallowed by the mattress. And that's what I learned, by the way, that God has a sense of humor. Because, oh, you think you like the tits? Wham! Here's the armpit. Body odor may not bother a European because they're, frankly, they all smell like farts, so it's okay. But this side of the Atlantic, you bring me anything like that in a restaurant, I'm out of there. You put a passenger next to me on a plane that smells like gas, I'm going to ask to be moved elsewhere or to the plane.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I lived in Western Europe, and the people were really stinky, and I thought I got the impression that they stank because it was sort of like a mark of authenticity, not like these poncy Americans with their underarm deodorants. And I lived in Norway, and Norwegian women are famously beautiful, but they were stinky. And
Yeah.
in the summertime, everybody they ran around in their skimpiest clothing and unleashed their stink upon the land, and it was it was bad. I never developed any Norwegian.
Like a green fog coming over Norway.
Yeah. No, it was pretty bad. But I don't know. We're back to that with leftists here. That leftist women they deliberately stink as their political statement against men, and that's all fine. I mean, what they're doing now is crazy because they're appealing only to the craziest leftists imaginable. That they lost because they couldn't appeal to the majority of Americans. And so what they're doing now is they're appealing deliberately to even fewer Americans. Yeah, like that one. I mean, that woman,
This thing,
she looks like a British like character in a recurring series or something, like someone from the Benny Hill show or the Mr. Bean show.
yeah, the one that scares everybody out of their wits.
Yeah, and I heard her shrieking about how Trump was being controlled by Elon Musk, and Elon Musk is the real president. And it was like, okay, you can say that if you want, but every single person who voted for Trump knows that nobody controls Trump except for Trump. And the idea that someone like Musk would even want to control Trump, obviously, neither Trump nor Musk. You've come up with something to appeal to the bottom of the barrel of your own party, not the rest of the country. And I find myself thinking, why are you doing this? Like this is your answer, that now you're going to go absolutely insane on every possible level, and that you think that's going to win you elections? It's amazing.
Yeah. Just in case somebody didn't see this, let's give it a try. That's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
American public.
By the way, let's watch this. And other than her style of speaking, which I find a close cussing of the scratching on a blackboard, let's see what she says, talking about lessons not learned.
Has been clamoring for this body to work together, Democrats and Republicans, across the aisle, to do what is in the best interest of the American people. To that end, and to give credence to what the American people are claiming.
But by the way, just in case somebody missed it, the American people are clamoring for everybody to work together and sing Kumbaya in Congress and do the work of the American people. Okay.
Clamoring for, so they begin to have trust in us again. And what we do in this body is that we've been working since last August of 2023, on a supplemental disaster.
Last August of 2023, not August of 2024, which would have been last August of 2023. They've been working for a year and a half on the continuing resolution.
Disaster relief bill.
How old is this woman?
She's in her 70s, I believe.
Okay,
keep going. She used to be the chief of staff of Senator Chris Dodd. Remember, the friend of Angelo?
Yes.
We worked assiduously.
We worked assiduously. Did you hear that?
Yeah, she's 81 years old.
Oh, okay. I was talking 78. 81.
She's 81 years old with purple hair.
We worked assiduously. What the fuck does that even mean?
I don't know.
Over the next several months, day in and day out. And I will just say to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, I recognize I am part of what's called the Four Corners. And it was the Four Corners of the Appropriations Committee, Mr. Cole and myself and Senator Murray and Senator Collins.
Who the fuck are those?
Who wanted to get these bills done, the appropriations bills done, by December 20th, because we believed that we could have done it and get these bills done. We were told no. We were told no. That we had to have a continued.
Assuming it was true and they were working for months on the fucking bill, that means that everybody should vote for it and shut the fuck up. Because we did the work, now you vote for yes.
Continuing resolution that would carry us into next year. No government should be run by continuing resolutions.
Falling asleep.
Eh?
The man on the left keeps falling asleep.
Oh, poor thing.
That is not good governance. But there are those in this body who don't know how to govern and don't care about governing.
Hey, I thought she just
so we worked hard over the last several weeks, back and forth and back, to say we can accept this, we can't accept that.
By the way, as you said,
does this go anywhere?
So far?
Does this go anywhere?
Oh, I'm going to go another 3 minutes ahead.
We trust in this body. And above all, can the American people trust us trust us with their lives. When we had a moment, when we came to agreement as Democrats and Republicans, and then we were able to say,
later,
let's move forward.
Over and
This
over
country,
again.
you know, one of my colleagues, I think it was Congressman Neal, who said this. The only currency we have in this body is our word. That's our credibility. That's our bond with each other. And when you break that bond, you break the ability to try to come together.
This is better than Benny Hill, man.
And be able to govern on behalf of the people of this country. What was left out of this bill, I understand what's in it, but was left out
You have to wait
is
the end.
unconscionable, particularly in the areas of maternal
Gentlewoman's time has
mortality.
expired. The gentlewoman's,
I implore my colleagues to vote no on this.
The gentleman's time is expired. Now,
well, I mean,
these
are. No, I was just going to say these are buffoons. This is an 81-year-old buffoon.
That's where that is a speech which we refer to President, and they didn't vote for this thing that we all made because President Musk said they shouldn't.
Well,
holy crap!
No, I mean, okay, from what I understand, the bill she's talking about was initially 1,700 pages long.
Yes.
And they cut it down to 185 or something like that.
Yes.
So that's the give and take of Congress. Who gives a shit how long this crone has worked on anything?
She hasn't worked a day in her life.
No, of course not. And you know, our trust is our bond, our word. I mean, nobody looks at Congress and says, I trust your word. Your word is your bond. Nobody does. Nobody in the entire country looks at Congress. So, you know, speeches like that, I mean, these people are just they're a complete waste of time. All I want are results. If it takes Musk saying, fuck you fuckers, and they fall in line, that's fine by me. That's absolutely fine by me.
Yeah, and you know, I'm yet to ascertain that was the case, because there was a third version, that is the one that actually passed, that was a bit longer than the 160 page, but it doesn't matter. It's a legislative process. They go back and forth. They come up with a proposal. The House may or may not let it go onto the floor. If it does, they may or may not vote for it. They go back to the drawing board, and that's what it is. It's a deliberative process, not an imposition where a tiny group says to everybody, Nancy Pigliosi style, this is it, you vote for it, we'll talk about it afterwards.
Yeah, and see, it to leftists, to Democrats, coming together means doing things their way. It's like the abusive spouse who gets hysterical with rage because their partner doesn't want to go fishing that day, and the person who wants to go fishing gets hysterical and says, "But what happened to our marriage? What happened to our?" It's
always your way.
Yeah.
And of course, the Democrats have been voting as a monolithic bloc for decades now.
Yeah.
They've closed the doors to Republican lawmakers. Remember with Obamacare? They didn't even let them participate in the committee meetings.
What about the January 6th committee?
Yeah, how about that one? Let's work. And now, when they lose, when they cannot, by their usual wiles, get their shit imposed on the rest of us, then and by the way, there were things in there. There was a provision that would have prevented judicial action against that bitch from Wyoming.
Yeah.
I mean, what does have to do with the price of oranges in China?
Well, they're
claiming that that Musk killed the provision to fund cancer research for children. Actually, the House passed that provision a month ago, and it's held up in the Senate because Schumer has refused to bring it to the floor.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is what they always do. They either insert a poison pill that makes it impossible for the other side to vote for it, and then they say, look, they didn't want to fund cancer research for children, or they cram it full of stuff that has nothing to do with the bill. They refuse to pass clean bills. You know, and then they, like that crone there who goes out and talks about her word being her bond. Nobody believes that. Her own staff was laughing behind her back.
Oh God, probably more than anybody else. And you see the tepid applause because it's probably 2 or 3 people she paid.
Yeah. No, they make me
But
sick.
anyway, that kind of smurf is what we have. And you see, when this woman makes a reference to President Musk, and everybody discusses it, my question is, who gives a shit what this woman says?
Well, I don't.
Why do we have to discuss it?
But see, okay, the press is they're doing what they always do. Now they're coming out and saying that they should have been more thorough in investigating whether or not Biden was fit for office.
Imagine that.
Yeah. And these are the same people who said that anybody who questions Biden's fitness is basically un-American.
A traitor.
Now they're letting themselves off the hook by saying, you know, we failed in our job to make sure that you know he was fit for his job. Okay, right before we went on the air, I just heard that we bombed the hell out of the Houthis. That wasn't an order given to Biden. That wasn't an order.
Now, Biden doesn't even know who the Houthis are anymore. That came straight out of Central Command.
Yeah. And okay, I know that conservatives are hysterical with rage. Not conservatives, some people, because the U.S. met with the former Abu Muhammad al-Jawlani in Syria. I think that's a good thing. Why can't we meet with him? What harm does it? You know, the guy says he's renounced.
It's the same people that accuse Trump of loving dictators because he met with Rocket Boy in North Korea, which I think, by the way, it was a great move.
Of course.
Of course you meet. You meet with your enemies, you meet with your friends, you meet with everybody and their mothers, you meet with the son of a bitch, and then you bomb the son of a bitch if need be. But what is this thing? Oh, we had talks, low-level talks. It's not like the president went to kiss Giuliani's ring. Low-level talks with Giuliani, which is indispensable to have a kind of working relationship, because we have 2,000 soldiers in there.
Well, okay, we did something. Okay, from what I read, Giuliani was the smarter and more reasonable of the pair because he wanted to talk strictly about the Syrian economy, and our side demanded that they started demanding quotas of women in the government. You know, women and minorities in the Syrian government. Now.
Yeah, but what the fuck is that? And what business is it of ours?
Well, see, this is the thing. And the minute you start giving orders to somebody like Giuliani, you're putting him in an untenable situation. Because if he turns around and does what you're demanding he does, then he loses all respect.
Not only that, but number one, this now, because of this you're saying, I'm suspecting that these were fuckers from the State Department. Because
they were.
Yeah, this has all the foul body odor of Blinken.
Yep.
You know, these social justice warriors pretending to be diplomats. Fuck them. What Syria? Why don't they go tell the Taliban what to do with women?
Well, see, this is the thing. Here you have a guy who's at least verbally renounced everything he ever stood for. He agreed to meet with the Americans, who he used to basically call the Great Satan. And the first thing out of their mouths is, how many women are you going to have in your government? And it's like, holy shit. Like,
my answer to them is go fuck yourself with a dildo.
Well, again, the more reasonable person involved was Giuliani, because he was totally non-committal about all of that, and he wanted to talk about the economy. And it's when Trump comes in, Trump is going to send somebody like Rick Grenell, and they're going to have a very productive talk. Trump's people aren't going to say a goddamn word about who needs to be. Giuliani has been adamant that the government has to represent the people of Syria. You know, it has to be a multi-sectarian government that needs to represent the people of Syria. And, you know, what we need to do is we need to encourage all of that without starting to tell them what sort of the quota people.
Listen, diplomacy is a funny business. You can get in a room, and in the instances where I've had the marches like that, sometimes the vocabulary is quite unacceptable for public TV.
Of course.
Because people use four-letter words.
Oh, yeah.
Very frequently to make a point. And you have this closed door meeting where you pull each other's hair, you poke each other's eyes. Listen, you son of a bitch, if you don't do this, we're going to fuck you with a missile. And then, when the door opens, is, well, we've had a very frank and candid conversation, and I think we understand each other better now. You don't tell people what demands you made.
No.
Because you put the other side in a position where if they were willing to work with you, now they can't. It's a self-defeating idiocy. As far as communication, we had a direct line between the Kremlin and the White House during the harshest years of the Cold War.
Of course.
Because at times, you want to make sure that you know this isn't something else. You want to make sure you get a clarification in time before you do something stupid. So communicating with Giuliani is fine. Making sure that you work with Giuliani so that Syria gets its hands off Israel, kicks Iran back home, works with the Turks in their autonomous region and support them so that Turkey cannot expand. It's a very complicated puzzle in there. And yes, you work with them. And if they prove you cannot work with them, then you move on to the next step.
As of yet, Giuliani has said he has absolutely no plans to do anything negative to Israel. He's said that his main focus is the economy of Syria. He's completely cut off all benefits that Iran has. He's threatened the mullahs. He's called the mullahs the epicenter of the sectarian poison that's racked the Middle East. So,
and by the way, I think he's sincere on that one.
I think he's sincere. This is a guy who's
a Sunni Muslim.
This is a guy who's nominally been fighting us for over 20 years, and
or more.
So he's willing to meet with us, and he wants to talk about the economy. He doesn't want to talk about the problems we've had in the past. And so, okay, the reason Trump's meeting with Kim Jong-un was so brilliant was because the American policy for 70 years was, first you do what we tell you to do, and then we'll agree to meet you. that was guaranteed to fail, because in East Asian culture, that would have robbed Kim Jong-un of all possible face.
Oh, the military would have eaten him alive.
When Trump met with Kim Jong-un, it allowed Kim Jong-un to bank so much face that he could basically go ahead for another decade at minimum.
Yeah.
Basically living off that face. So I have no doubt that the Trump administration is going to be totally willing to work with Jelani. And they're not going to be making incredibly stupid statements such as, he needs to do what we demand before we start helping him out first. And
that is the matter of defeat. When I said that I thought Giuliani was sincere, I wasn't even talking in such wide terms. Insofar as his relationship with Iran is, I have no doubt he is sincere.
Oh, yeah.
I have no doubt. Remember that the Alawites are Shia Muslims,
Mm-hmm.
and they've been allies of Iran forever, and of the Baathists in Iraq as well, when they were still around. And all of a sudden comes this guy from another stick in the chicken coop. And he doesn't like Iran. He doesn't like Iran. He probably likes Iran less than he does the US.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he gave. Remember when I say, when we talk about other people here, I understand people changing opinions.
Mm-hmm.
I do. Fuck. I did. I'm not the same man I was 40 years ago, for crying out fucking loud. I can understand that 30 years later, he sees what he was doing under a different light.
Well, he's actually said what I believed was wrong, which is something Middle Easterners almost never say. They never say I was wrong.
No, unless they know for certain that they were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing I say. How many times you and I have had discussions, and I told you, people that I knew 40 years ago in Argentina would tell me, but this is not the way you thought back then. I said, of course not. And I was young, ignorant, and inexperienced and stupid. What is your excuse? He might jolly well be saying that. He might have gone into the wrong thing for the right reasons and found out he was in a cul-de-sac. I did 40 years ago.
Well, he was
saying people can articulate why they changed over time.
Well, he's pointed out that he believed certain things as a man in his 20s, and now as a man in his 50s, he understands how wrong he was. And the giving him a chance and seeing if we can work out a deal. And if there are no pogroms, if there are no massacres, if there's no secret police set up, if there's none of that that's happening, then okay, the U.S. has already taken. They already took the $10 million reward off his head.
Yeah,
the HTS
the page has been deleted.
Exactly. HTS is still on the State Department terrorist watch list, but as we both know, that can be taken off, at any time, So it doesn't hurt us at all to give this guy a chance. I'm not saying we start shipping him pallets of cash, but no. If Syria can become and remain stable, then every single country in the region and us, we all benefit. We all benefit from this, because Syria has been a state sponsor of terrorism for 50 years. So,
More.
or more. If they no longer are state sponsors of terrorism, everybody benefits. And
if they abandon designs over Lebanon,
yes, exactly.
have a secure border with Israel,
Yep.
and no longer allow Iran to transit weapons and drugs through its territory to the Mediterranean, we've already won majorly.
Yeah, and look at Iran now. Iran has lost everything.
No, it's about to lose more.
And it's about to lose more. Yeah. No, at some point, the Israelis are going to continue destroying the Iranian nuclear weapons research facilities, and that's going to be it. And hopefully, they'll hit the IRGC facilities as well, and then maybe the Iranian army and the people can rise up and get rid of the mullahs once and for all.
Yeah, there is another thing for Syria. Giuliani may be the visible head of the government in Damascus today because he rolled in, and he rolled into a vacuum where Assad betrayed all of his friends as usual and shut off to Russia without telling anybody, and nobody knew what to do, and these guys just walked into Damascus. But HTS is not the only armed force in Syria.
Correct.
Ideologically, they are radically apart.
Mm-hmm.
This is not something that anybody will fix in the short term. You have factions that are demanding that everybody else surrender their weapons. Like that, it's going to happen. The only way where that is happening is where the Israelis show up and they say, "Bring me your weapons, or I come into town." Here are the weapons.
Yeah.
Bring you some tea too. Do you want some sheep? Out. But you have remnants of the Free Syrian Army.
Mm-hmm.
You have the PKK and the YDK that are in no mood to surrender anything to anyone, not HTS, not the Turks.
Well, they'd be crazy to do so. Given the history of the region, they'd be crazy to do so.
They would be signing off their own death warrants. You have the Alawites in Latakia and all the jazz, which struck a deal. Okay, you come in, but we don't offer resistance, and we find a level of coexistence, but they're all armed.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody can impose their will without very, very bloody battles. And I think the country is very tired of that.
Well, there's no reason to keep on fighting at this point. What Syria can do, Syria can become a country of 5 semi-autonomous regions and live in perfect peace, have a centralized government, and then each autonomous region has its own government, and
perhaps that's why Giuliani is so obsessed with the economy, because if he manages to improve even marginally the lot of these people, he's going to be a hero. He's going to be there for a long time.
I watched a CNN episode about Syria, and was it CNN? No, it was some British channel. It may have been the BBC. And they had to do although people are happy, there's a black cloud right around the corner. And so they started out by saying, some people are already, they've come back from exile in Europe, but others are terrified of going back. They went back and then they already left again. And they showed the guy coming home. He'd left Syria in 2013, and he was meeting his mother again since 12 years later. The guy they chose, who's saying that Syria is more screwed up now than it was under Assad, he's a guy who brought attention to all the war crimes committed by everybody. So he's accused everybody in Syria of war crimes. That's the guy they chose. Now, he would be out of his mind to go back to Syria. Like he's pissed off every single person there. And this is the guy the BBC goes to say that there's dark clouds hovering over Syria because
BBC?
The BBC, yeah.
You mean the same BBC that was singing paeans to the asshole that just drove into a Christmas market in Germany?
The BBC who did a story about the leftist Saudi atheist psychiatrist who just decided that the way to make his message heard was to drive a car. I watched the video. Never seen anything like that before.
No, I did. I have videos of the Spanish TV interviewing ISIS terrorists who were, of course, persecuted by the vile U.S. And this one, and the European left is entirely at this point without raison d'être.
Well, this Saudi atheist psychiatrist was writing posts that were exactly identical to American leftist posts about how the time for talking is over and nobody's listening, so they have to do something dramatic to get everybody's attention. So here we have an asylum activist who thinks that after he plows into 200 people, that Germany will say, "Oh, you know what? Let's bring in more asylum seekers." So that guy all by himself has basically killed any German desire to have any more asylum seekers in the country.
The guy, it's a fucking ISIS shithead.
Of course.
Always was. Who snaked his way into Germany by claiming he had abandoned Islam and was being persecuted by those evil people in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Which led the German government to refuse to extradite him to Saudi Arabia, where he was going to be tried, among other things, for rape.
Yeah.
And they put him as a psychiatrist in a hospital. I mean, come on. The psychopath is the psychiatrist. You cannot write this with an Edgar Allan Poe playwright.
Well, see, the Germans accepted him as a fuck you to Saudi Arabia. They didn't do any vetting, do any background checks.
No, let me show you this.
I'm from Saudi Arabia. I'm an activist. I created a website to help people seeking asylum, especially from Saudi Arabia and the Gulf region.
This is the fucking BBC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I use basically WhatsApp, Twitter, Telegram. If I have time, I spend totally helping Saudi asylum seekers between 10 to 16 hours.
Okay. Lovely chap, isn't he?
Well, the BBC didn't do any vetting. The Germans didn't do any vetting.
Mm-mm.
And as a result, once again, German Christmas shoppers have to become the bowling pins to that guy's bowling ball. And
Yeah.
um,
And by the way, this guy was in Arabic in Twitter. Uh, you know, propagandizing for Hamas, defending Hamas's actions on October 7th, threatening anybody who would call him on it. This guy was a jihadist from here to Timbuktu. And I'm sick and tired of the European press painting him like a social justice hero who was misunderstood, which is exactly what they're doing.
well, I mean, okay, let's say he's a social justice hero who is misunderstood. Doesn't the fact that he ran his car into hundreds of people, doesn't that make them sort of admire him a little
Well,
bit?
if he was upset with Muslims in Saudi Arabia and persecution against him, why didn't he ram his car into a mosque?
Well, we know the answer to that.
Because, I mean, none of this makes sense the way the left wing media portrays it. He did the same thing that every other ISIS operative who managed to get their hands onto a car on a map did. This thing about running cars into Christmas markets is already like a national sport in Germany.
Well, I think he did it on the very day of the last major car Christmas attack. I think he did it on the same day.
Yeah, well, there was 3 last year,
Oh,
4 the year before that. In Berlin, they finally built a shitload of barricades around the entrances to the Christmas market, but in the towns they haven't, because they think that it's only going to happen in the big cities. So they leave the towns vulnerable, and guess where they go? This is not the first time.
no, of course not.
Bowling is a jihadist's favorite pastime.
They've done it in multiple European countries. I remember some fucker took a big truck and did it in France, and he killed.
In Nice. In
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
He killed.
And how about Barcelona?
He killed a double-digit number of people, and then when the cops shot him, the cops were criticized.
Yes.
They're criticized because why didn't they give him a chance to give up? It's like,
Well,
because he was
in Barcelona, they killed a double-digit number of people in the Ramblas and escaped. And when the cops find them, there was a shootout. The guy shot nearly 400 shots and was eventually killed by police. And the police officer who shot him had to go through a manslaughter charge. It's ridiculous.
Well, why would anyone want to be a cop in Spain then?
Well, it's perfectly well if you collect your salary and do nothing, which is what they do now. And Saudi Arabia warned Germany. Not only did they ask for his extradition multiple times, they warned him what they had. Like the Russians warned us about the Tsarnaevs.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Saudis warned us about Khashoggi and others. And bin Laden, for that matter. And, for the Social Democrats, Saudi is a pariah state, isn't it?
Which is funny because Saudi is far more far closer to Europe than Hamas, and Europeans love Hamas, but they hate Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, well, that's an understatement, my friend. You don't do many of those around here. Uh, I don't know. I think it's lunacy. But on the other hand, uh, there's a shitload of people on the streets in Germany demanding deportations now.
Oh, yeah. As well they should. I mean, there are certain people. Okay, remember when the Syrians first started leaving Syria en masse, and the Gulf Arab states would not take them, and all the fingers were pointed at them. And the Gulf Arab, one of the Saudi, maybe he was the foreign minister, he said, "Look, these are people who will never integrate into Saudi culture. They will never integrate into Saudi culture. You think because we're all Arabs that, you know, they're going to become Saudi Arabians. They're not. They're not. So if we bring them in, they're literally going to be people without a country. And if there's a couple generations of them, they're going to be a couple of generations of non-integrated, angry, homeless Syrians. So, you know, the Saudis said what you have to do is you have to build safe spots in Syria and surround them with soldiers. And of course, nobody wanted to do that. So the Syrians were brought into Germany and all the other European countries. And now all the European countries want them gone.
One of them just shot a couple of Jewish students in, I think it was Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
Another asshole was just killed by the Chicago police after shooting a rabbi coming out of. By the way, this latest one is from Mauritania,
Yep.
which nobody speaks about. Mauritania, which happens to be an Islamic republic,
Mm-hmm.
as medieval as Iran or more. He was, and I quote, encountered by Border Patrol in August of last year. Encountered.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
admitted into the U.S.
Whoa, who are you?
Yeah, and encountered. And you know, he was giving a parole with a date for, you know, somewhere around 2032 for a court date, and moved to Chicago, and now he's shooting the Jewish population of Chicago. Well, not anymore. Now he's dead, but not before shooting a rabbi coming out of the synagogue. Uh, this is exactly what we've been saying was going to happen all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Hardly a week goes by in this country that we don't have one of the assholes who walked in through the border from Mauritania, from Afghanistan, from Pakistan, from Iraq, carrying out some sort of terrorist attack, or failing to do so. They just arrested another one, but every fucking week.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing in Europe. And the same thing in Europe. One of the things that Trump is going to do, remember I told you I like Pam Bondi?
Uh-huh.
Well, she already said that any foreign student here on a student visa who participates, shows support for any kind of demonstration pro Hamas or against Jews, or so much as carries a Palestinian flag, will have their visa revoked and their ass deported. Music to my ears.
Mm-hmm.
Why the fuck are we housing and educating these vermin?
The Tsarnaevs got free housing, they got free education, they got free food, and they got a salary, a free like welfare salary, a stipend.
Yeah.
And in return, they set off to pressure cooker bombs in the Boston Marathon.
Yeah. April 14th or April 15th, April 14 or 15, I don't remember. Why are we doing these things? Now, that's a rhetorical question because I just said Pat Bundy just announced the end is near. Why do the left still support these vermin?
I'm convinced that the major motivator of leftism is to do things to piss off conservatives. And, you know, the average leftist person doesn't know or care about, you know, anybody coming up across the border. They just know that conservatives don't like it, so they have to support it. And there's no more thought than that given to it. As for the politicians, they want voters and they also want cheap labor. It used to be that the Republican politicians wanted cheap labor, but now it's the Democrats want cheap labor too. They've said as much.
It's always the Democrats.
Yep. Who's going to pick your lettuce? It's like, wait, you think Afghans are going to be out there picking lettuce?
Who's going to pick your cotton?
Exactly.
This comes to way before the Civil War. The Republicans come from northern states that were more dependent on industrial production. Their problem was never the need for massive cheap labor. That was, back then, the southern states. Now things have changed.
Mm-hmm.
Now things have changed. And what hasn't changed is the Democratic Party's affection for cheap labor. It continues to this day. And they say, well, if we don't do this, nobody's going to pick the lettuce. Okay. So when the Bush administration proposed immigration reform that included a worker's visa so that people working the harvests in the US could come in with a visa through a port of entry, do their job, and go back to Mexico. Why did they oppose it? That would have given you all the lettuce pickers you need who would be working legally and entitled to a few rights that illegal workers do not enjoy in American countries, farms. It would have freed Border Patrol to go after bad actors, not 700,000 people crossing to work in the tomato harvest or the strawberry harvest or the tobacco harvest. And the Democrats did not want it. So they have zero interest for the welfare of the farm workers, do they?
No, and they never have. But see, they're going to keep on pushing all this stuff, and it's lost all its currency. So, that idiot crone, DeLuca or whatever her name was. You played me a clip of her talking about how the need for female crash test dummies. I just looked up the statistics. The latest numbers we have are for 2022. 30,700 males killed in vehicle accidents. 12,000 females killed in vehicle accidents. So it's 3-to-1 in terms of male, and they claim that women suffer greater injuries than men. That's only because, taken as a group, women tend to be physically smaller, lighter, and built differently than males. So, it's again, we have to build an equal number of female crash test dummies as male crash test dummies. No, we don't. It's
No, I propose that she volunteer. She would make a perfect female crash test dummy.
Well, they did before the advent of crash test dummies. They used human cadavers in
Yes,
the car testing, and you would volunteer to donate your body to become a crash test dummy.
she's almost there. She can do something for science. Just hurry up so we can use you for a test.
Yeah, think about it.
I really, I can't take these idiots seriously.
She's 81 years old. They have nobody coming up that can hold a candle to the number of young Republicans who basically, you know, have decades of service ahead of them. Who are they going to run? One of the Vindman brothers? I mean,
Yep, they did, and he won.
oh yeah, he did, but that guy is not presidential material. I mean, like he doesn't even
Neither
come
was
close.
Biden.
Pardon me?
Neither was Biden. Neither was Kakala. Since
Well,
when
okay,
is that an experiment?
in the case of Biden, that was like, okay, they did cheat, but they were able to cheat because it was, you know, it was close. It shouldn't have been close, but it was close because Americans took everything that Trump did for them. They took it for granted. They thought, you know, everything's fine, so we can afford to get rid of the mean tweets guy and have everybody's favorite grandpa here. And you know, he's sweet. He was decent. Remember, he was going to bring decency back.
Yeah, he did bring decency. He brought indecency to the White House by the cartload. But yeah, the stupidity of the average American voter, it made that half this country bought into the bring decency back into the White House. Decency, according to the Democrats, was trans characters shaking their tits in the White House lawn. That's decency.
Yeah, yeah.
Somebody said, Ayo said here in the chat that the leftist hatred of Saudi has nothing to do with religious oppression, perceived or otherwise. It's America's bad by proxy.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Definitely.
true. It's their anti-Americanism. You know, ever since Saudi started playing ball with America, they became the bad guys by association. It's true. Same thing with Israel. Although I should say that anti-Semitism is such an ingrained characteristic of the European left that maybe even without an association with America, they would still hate Israel.
Well, see, that's such a antediluvian mindset given what's happening in the Middle East today. Like you know, you were mentioning that the Israelis drive up to towns in Syria and they say, "Bring out your weapons, or we'll come in and get them." And within a few minutes, there's like dump trucks dumping piles of weapons out there. And this is because all Middle Easterners now understand that the big boy on the block in terms of military strength and the will to use it is Israel. You know,
Yes.
Israel is fighting on 8 fronts. I mean, it's like, what? There isn't a single other country that could do what Israel's doing. And
they're doing what we've been saying for a year and a half. Because when we said this in November of last year, I'm pretty sure that most people listening to us thought we were full of shit, that they were going to go after Hamas, that they were going to go after Fatah, that they were going to go after Hezbollah, the Houthis, the militias in Syria, the militias in Iraq, and then Iran. In that order.
Yep.
Well, Hamas is gone. There have been several raids in Jenin, and the Palestinian Authority is on the verge of collapse. Fatastan is about to fall. We've already discussed what's going on in Syria, but Iran's influence in Syria is gone. Hezbollah has been deballed and decommissioned. Now, just this week, they took just about every major target in Yemen. And whatever the Israelis didn't take on 3 days ago, Central Command just did. And the Houthis are going to be pounded into the ground to the point that the non-Houthi government of Yemen will be able to roll over them, because that's the end game for Yemen.
Mhm.
Going back to the status quo ante 2015.
Mhm.
Iran is on the ropes. It's happening.
Mhm.
And now we have a list of 10 countries waiting to get into the Abraham Accords.
One of them being Pakistan.
Who would have thunk?
Well, remember
Malaysia.
the former president, the military guy. He went to Israel years ago, and that was a big deal. And okay, I think Pakistan holds the honor of being the only country in the world whose leader has never finished out his term because they were either assassinated or arrested. In the last one, the was he an actor or was he a soccer star? I can't remember. Trump met him and was praising him up to the skies, and then he got arrested for corruption, and it was just a big giant mess. But okay, Pakistan has the inter-service intelligence, which at one point had created more terrorist groups than any other group, and then
any other group.
Then Trump allowed a general in Afghanistan to drop a Moab on their heads, and he wiped out the entire field division. It was about 500 men who were basically lured into Afghanistan, and then they were wiped out. And that was the end of the ISI's ability to arm and train terrorists. So with that gone, they decided, you know what? Maybe we should start making peace with everybody and see if we can solve some of our perennial problems.
Except for India.
Exactly, yeah.
That they don't want to do.
Well, and they're insane because the Indians have come to realize that Pakistan will basically never use its nukes. So the Indians are on the march. The Indians are not afraid of China. They're not afraid of Pakistan. They basically just went into Kashmir and said, okay, this is all over. Enough is enough. They did the same thing with the Chinese. They herded them over a cliff. All those stupid border guards that would throw rocks at them, they just herded them over a cliff, and that was the end of that.
And that was the end of that. That was, but it proves that Chinese infantry can fight perfectly well when confronted with half the size of their force made out of Indians.
I just...
And there are people who are still worried that China is going to invade Taiwan. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the Pacific Comm or whatever, they announced that the Chinese were rehearsing a blockade of Taiwan. And it's like, China, haven't you ever heard of submarines? Do you understand that the Japanese have a whole fleet of submarines that's designed specifically to break
that kind of
blockade?
Yeah, but they can rehearse all the fucking want. They still don't have enough ships.
No.
Not anywhere near what they need.
No.
So, they can play like a kid plays with Matchbox. But that doesn't mean that the kid can go to a Formula One race and win with the Matchbox. Oh, Ayo is telling us Starmer is that cretin who happens to be Prime Minister of England, but not for much longer. Will send Peter Mandelson as U.S. ambassador or ambassador to the U.S. Good luck with that mendacious skid mark on the underwear of British politics. I like the way he puts that.
Oh, did you hear what the Trump campaign said, or the Trump what do you call it? The administration in waiting. The quote was that he's a moron who should just stay home.
Yes, but I'd like a skid mark in the underwear of British politics. That is absolutely perfect. A shit stain, in other words. Uh, yeah, no, it's if I were the Trump administration, I wouldn't take his credentials. I just wouldn't take his credentials. It's just send him back home and tell him to send me a real one. If people think this is not done, that is precisely what England did to Roosevelt with Joe Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
Take him home. We have enough Nazis around here. He was too friendly with Hitler for Churchill's taste. Isn't that lovely?
Well, isn't it funny that the the crown jewel of American leftism is one of the most horrendously disgusting families that ever lived, that produced nothing but psychotic womanizers and political flops and just corruption up to the eyeballs, and these are the ones that you hold up, the poor idiot son who decides he's going to night fly, even though he's never been certified to night fly, and he gets into what,
and he probably went into the Atlantic while thinking he was climbing.
well, they think he got into what's called the death spiral, that this is when people refuse to believe their own instruments, that they look out the window and they see something, and so they react to what they're seeing, and the instruments are telling you exactly the opposite. And so the window is looking out the window tells you that you need to go down, but the instruments are telling you climb, you idiot. So you go into what's known as a death spiral, and you just fly right into the ocean.
The stars you think you see are the lights of the fishing boats, you moron.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. But you know what? I can't say I lament the event, because we would have had to suffer that son of a bitch in Congress eventually. He would have been a governor in Massachusetts. I'm so glad we didn't have to put up with another one. We have too many Kennedys as it is.
Well, none of them really came to a good end, did they?
No, it's karma.
Yep. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what this Kennedy will do in the Trump administration.
Hmm?
We'll see what the Kennedy will do in the Trump administration.
Nothing good.
Well, he's sounding a lot more reasonable now. I don't believe he's going to go batshit crazy. He's
help it.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I think he is going to. One of the reasons that I'm not alarmed or anything is he really won't be able to do much anyway.
Mm-hmm.
His position is administrative. He won't be in charge of developing policy. He will be in charge of making sure that people don't spend over budget, which, by the way, I don't think he's able to do anyway. So I'm not worried. I don't think he can do much damage, and if he does any, he's going to be stopped instantly, and that'll be the end of it. It could be fun, even, but I don't expect anything good from a Kennedy. Nothing. Oh, they're talking in the chat about China's economy. Uh, Everything we said about China's economy is happening. It's tanking. Now it's not the real estate, it's the banks, manufacturing. Everything is turning to shit.
Yeah, well, the Russians have discovered that they've killed off almost all their able-bodied men. So it's like, what are they going to do?
The Russians, no, I'm talking of the Russia's economy is tanking. China is tanking.
Yeah. No,
They
China.
run out of money to pay government employees. I mean, it's really crazy.
No, and you know the okay, Shishi is on he's on an anti-corruption. He's trying to make examples of officers in the army, you know, anti-corruption. Well, Shishi personally is as corrupt as anybody else in China, and so these guys are starting to fight back, and they're starting to resist using weapons. So when the Chinese version of the FSB comes, they start opening fire on them, and
Yeah.
this is how
No, but
start.
and how does it work when she cannot pay the salaries of police officers?
Well, exactly. I mean, this is I watch a lot of movies, and there was a period where every movie that was being made basically with the money and the permission of the Chinese, and so there was always a little sort of there's a really brilliant science fiction movie, and I can't remember the title, but it takes place in the future, and it's a sort of time travel movie, and a guy from the future comes back and he tells the main character that he needs to learn Mandarin because in the future China is going to be this global powerhouse. And you know, so of course this guy ends up going to China in the year 2067 or something, and China is perfect. China is heaven on earth. And it's like, that was never going to be the case. It was not possible. We were told that China was a hybrid. It was a hybrid of communism and free market capitalism. There's no such hybrid in existence.
Fascism.
Yeah, exactly.
Mixed economy. They're discovering black powder every other year.
Yeah.
No, it never worked. It won't work. And now they have a bigger. It works in one sense. When people live in the countryside of China, generation after generation, working in the rice paddies, living in a fucking hut with dirt floors, living short and brutal lives, and eating a bowl of rice a day. That's life.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. They don't rebel. They don't fight revolutions. Their fight their fight spirit is all spent trying to get tonight's meal.
Mm-hmm.
When you take the younger generation out of those hats and you bring them first to shanty towns and then to better housing in Shanghai, in one, uh, and they see that life can be different. They see how other people live with fancy apartments and cars and electronics and fancy restaurants. They don't want to go back to the hut.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're going to fight. because I'm going to die before I go back to the hut. The problem that China has is that it gave much of its population a reason to fight for.
Mhm.
And they will. And now that the experiment is tanking and that massive amounts of industrial workers are being displaced and people don't have housing and they don't have work and they're beginning to be restless, there is no putting that genie back in the bottle. This is not going to end well for China.
Well, and also the Chinese political leadership is attacking the armed forces leadership, and they depend on the armed forces to keep them in power.
Yeah.
So it's like doubly stupid. They've got both the people and the armed forces against them.
Yes, and they need each other to survive, and they're going to find out pretty soon that it's like I said, it's not going to be pretty.
Well, the
The
fall
art
of
is fact, the political class is fact, and the Chinese people are not faring well.
the fall of Assad is much more important than a lot of people give it credit for being. I saw an in-depth report on why the Syrian Arab Army didn't fight. And the Syrian Arab Army didn't fight was because all the officers took to their heels and they didn't give any orders to the troops. They said, do whatever you can, you're on your own.
Yep.
Well,
I'm out of here.
Well, this was the thing, that the people who were tasked with holding back the rebels, they were told by their officers, you're on your own. There's going to be no extra ammunition and no reinforcements coming. Well, they said, fuck that, I'm going home. So that can happen in Russia and that can happen in China.
Oh,
If
yeah.
bad enough, then Putin and Shishi will fall, and they'll fall just as fast as Assad did.
Oh, yes. Prigozhin showed us how
Exactly.
fucking easy it is. If this band of highwaymen can get to within 100 miles of Moscow without
Unopposed.
resistance, they can take the headquarters of the Southern Army in Rostov and march to Moscow. And if they didn't voluntarily stop, they would have made it to the fucking Kremlin in another day.
Yeah.
It's that easy. It's that easy. And in order to defend an Ukrainian incursion into Soviet territory, they had to bring in soldiers from fucking North Korea. I wonder, by the way, if North Korea is going to charge them extra for the parasitosis.
Well, the North Koreans are proving to be worse than useless. There's no communication with the North Koreans, so the North Koreans are firing on all non-North Koreans they see. So as a result, they're killing Russians.
They're in survival mode now.
Yeah. No, I haven't watched any of the videos because I don't blame the North Koreans. They were basically, North Korea has a draft. So these are basically just like medieval peasants who were drafted. They don't know what drones are. So when the drones come, they just stand there and look at them and wonder until the drones do a kamikaze on them and kill them. And
yep.
I don't want to see that. I don't want to see some guy from the Middle Ages get killed by something he can't possibly understand. But Putin is I think you could say he's literally insane now. Like just his statements. He sounds a lot like Hitler in the bunker, talking about all the Wunderwaffe that are coming that are going to save Nazi Germany. The weapons that are just right around the corner that are going to turn the tide of the war, and that's what.
Oh, the synthetic fuel and
Yeah,
and
exactly.
and the jet aircraft, which by the way they designed a pretty decent jet aircraft, but it couldn't do shit in combat. Um, it's the same thing, except that Russia doesn't even have that coming down the pipeline. All they have is more misery.
Yeah, yeah.
All they have is more misery. And even though they manage through bands of mercenaries, what's left of the Wagner group, to take control of a couple of shitholes in the Sahel, like Niger and Mali, big fucking powerful countries, right? Um, it's just a theory operation. They're there to steal diamonds.
And they lost 80, an entire 80-man unit was wiped out in the Sahel.
Yeah.
The guys who killed him picked up the cameras that they all had, and these guys didn't know how to fight. They viewed their enemies with contempt. They're
Yeah.
Africans. What could they do? It's like, well, these guys have been fighting for 10 years. They can do a hell of a
Or
lot.
more, or more. Boko Haram,
Yep.
Al Shabaab, they've been fighting for the past 30 years.
Yep.
They can wipe their ass with the remains of the Wagner group. But still, I mean, and the Wagner group is no army. They're thieves.
Yep.
And that is the ragtag group that putting in diarrhea mode. I mean, come on, this is funny.
Well,
I know you're laughing.
see, it's shocking because I didn't have to have the Russo-Ukraine war show me what garbage the Russian armed forces are. I already knew that before. And when I watched all the experts on the news make excuses and promise, well, just wait till they get out in the open. The Russians really excel at fighting out in the open. Well, just wait till they get in the urban areas. Well, just wait till the winter comes. Russians fight brilliantly in the winter.
Yeah.
And the great day of the Russian bear rising off its knees never came. The Russian
No.
bear face planted in Ukraine. It's been there ever since.
We knew it. My opinion in February of 22 was, if they don't get to Kiev within a week, they're lost. Period. It's either a blitzkrieg and they get control in a week and it's a fait accompli, or they're gonna lose their shirt here. Well, they didn't get to Kiev in a week. The Kiev police stopped them.
The Kiev police stopped them, guys with literally no training whatsoever, but had the will to fight and were given light machine guns. So you had 100 men who each had one light machine gun, and they just fired these guns until there were no more standing Russians.
And I'm still listening to experts online in TV about how Ukraine has no hope. I'm sick and tired of this shit. I'm really sick and tired of this shit. Russia is fucked.
Yeah.
When Trump comes in next month, he's not gonna cut off Ukraine at the knees.
They've already announced they're not going to do that.
They're gonna supply Ukraine with everything they need. And yes, there's gonna be pressure to negotiate, but the negotiation is Russia withdraws from Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, you've heard what the Russian starting position is. It's Ukraine has to unilaterally disarm. Ukraine has to give up territory to serve as a buffer zone for Russia. Zelensky has to leave. Ukraine can never be allowed into NATO under any circumstances. This shows that the Russians are dead on arrival.
And Russia will guarantee their territorial integrity.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like they did with the Budapest Memorandum.
Yeah.
Fuck all. That is a non-starter. And Putin is in no position to impose conditions.
Well, okay, going back to talking about Europe, you just reminded me a Chinese flagged vessel that was crewed by Russians just made a whole trip around the Baltic, not the Baltic. Where the hell was it? What sea is closest to? Where the hell is it? Is it the Baltic Sea? No.
Well, you have the Baltic. Well, if it is in the north, it could be the Baltic near St. Petersburg, or the Arctic on the far north.
I just want to make sure I've got all my bodies of water correct. So
Yes.
there was a Chinese vessel, a Chinese flagged vessel that was steaming around. Okay, it had to be the Baltic Sea, and it was dragging an anchor, and it was cutting all the
Oh yeah, that was in the Baltic, and it was cutting the internet cables.
it was cutting all the cables.
Yeah.
Nobody did a fucking thing. Nobody did a thing.
They followed it.
They followed it, but it was allowed to do whatever it wanted. It should have been sunk. Who would complain? Who would complain? The Chinese, the Russians?
Yeah, the Chinese are going to declare war on Sweden. By the way, the Swedish Air Force can defeat China.
Of course. Of course.
Just so that people get into the spirit here. It still bothers me that everybody's still painting Russia as this great power. It isn't.
No.
It isn't. At this point, Russia would lose a war with Mexico, for crying out loud.
It would. It literally would.
So it's insane. It's absolutely fucking insane. And they're still repeating it, and they're still trying to sell us this shit, and they're still trying to demoralize Ukraine and its supporters. And everything we said 2 years ago, it's still valid. Europe cannot afford to let Russia gain territory by use of force. Period. End of story. They cannot afford it. If people are worrying about World War III, if you allow Russia to take territory in Ukraine, that is the start of World War III.
As the Poles have already said.
And the Italians, the defense minister of Italy said a long time ago, World War III starts when the Russian tanks get to the Polish border.
Yeah.
By now, anybody with a half a brain understands that whatever the fuck happens there, you cannot allow the Russians to gain territory. Johnson, our speaker, had a little spiel this afternoon that said, I'm going to do what I think is right. The threat of a motion to vacate does not work with me because I am not going to not do something I think ought to be done for fear of losing my job. If that is the condition, I don't want my job. Ukraine must be supported. I would rather, my son is starting at the Naval Academy this year. I would rather send bullets now than my son later.
Yeah.
Period. He gets it.
Well, and again, the people on our side who oppose this, they think that we're sending money to Zelensky personally. They think
because they're imbeciles.
They are. They are. They don't know anything. They don't know how anything works. And they hate Zelensky, but they don't have word one about the outrageous Russian atrocities that are committed on a daily basis. I mean, it literally doesn't penetrate. They hate.
No, the image that I put on the meme today, let me see if we can see it now. The background is actually what's left of the higher floors of a tall building that was hit by seven. I don't know if you can see it in between the faces. Uh, it's a building in Russia that was hit by seven drones, all of them hitting in the same three floors. There was
Mm.
something there,
Oh
you know.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
I mean, they didn't target the building for demolition. They target two floors of the building for destruction, and they
yeah.
did. What kind of command and control thing was there? I don't know yet, but it must have been something. But immediately people start talking about the war crimes of Ukraine in Russia.
Yeah, that's what I heard today too.
You have got to be fucking kidding me. Nobody is that stupid. Whoever is pushing the Ukrainian war crimes in Russia narrative is working for the fucking Russians, because nobody can be that stupid.
We're told that there were civilians in that building. Not a chance. Not on the floors that were hit by drones. The Russians wouldn't allow civilians near whatever was on that floor. And if it was a person, if it was a group of people, if it
But
was,
even if there were, even if there was a janitor, I don't give a shit.
well, to be perfectly accurate, the Geneva Conventions and the customary international humanitarian law allow for the deaths of civilians,
Yes,
as long as
when you
it's,
target a military
yeah,
facility.
exactly, as long as it's proportional to the value of the target you hit. So if hitting the target saves the lives of 200,000 civilians, then it's not a war crime that 100 civilians die. And there's no way that 100 civilians died in those drone attacks.
Listen, there are hundreds of cities and villages in Ukraine that were leveled to the ground.
Yeah, including Mariupol, where at least
Including
50,000
Mariupol,
Ukrainians were killed.
Vuledar, um, cities like Kherson, Kharkiv, Kiev have been constantly bombarded with targets in hospitals, schools, kindergartens, shopping malls,
Restaurants.
yeah, restaurants or streets, downtown streets with restaurants and bars. Anybody who talks to me about Ukrainian war crimes in Russia and is not talking about Russia's war crimes in Ukraine, you can't listen to them. And there are political operatives.
Well,
Like I said, nobody can be that stupid.
individual Ukrainians have committed war crimes, just like soldiers of all sides on an individual basis have committed
Yes,
war crimes in all conflicts.
I'm sure they have,
But the Russians commit war crimes as a matter of policy.
by design.
These are wholesale war crimes that are deliberately committed. They're carried out as a matter of Russian strategic planning. So you can't compare the two. If a Ukrainian executes, rapes, and murders a Russian civilian, that's not the same as nightly bombings by drones and missiles of civilian areas.
Yes, it is. Let's be fair. It is a crime, and they should be
Absolutely,
prosecuted.
absolutely.
And we do it, and our soldiers every now and then go berserk.
Oh, of
And the
course.
U.S. is pretty damn good at, uh, you know, putting them in the brig. And the systematic destruction of civilian areas the systematic destruction of civilian facilities. That is not one soldier gone berserk.
No, no, and this is how the Russians have always fought wars. That
Yeah,
they they use artillery to flatten cities, and then they occupy the rubble. And
yeah, they didn't do in Bakhmut what anything other than what they did first in Aleppo
yeah,
or in Chechnya.
which is why the Russians are running as fast as they can to get the hell out of Syria, because they've been told, if we catch you, we're going to string you up.
Yep, they have already a few.
And that's too bad for the Russians, but they flattened Aleppo with artillery. That was the Russians. They bombed. They sent their strategic bombers out to bomb civilians. So
Yes,
we've never done.
Everybody speaks of Guernica in Spain, which apparently gave origin to the famous Picasso painting that was at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, where I saw it just 6 months before it was sent back to Spain. And that was the Luftwaffe and the Italian Air Force doing practicing runs and bombing a town of which allegedly only a tree was left.
Mm-hmm.
And that is become an icon of criminality in war. Guernica is nothing compared to what the Russians did in Syria, Chechnya, and Ukraine. Nothing. It's less than a sample.
No, the Germans invented what could be called terror bombing. They started out with Zeppelins, and then they used fixed wing aircraft. And by the end of the war, they developed these 5-engine monstrosities known as the giant planes, and they were invented simply to bomb towns. Like they weren't looking for factories. They weren't looking. Today, I heard somebody talking about Dresden again, and Dresden. People think that Dresden was an example of pure terror bombing. Dresden was a legitimate military target. It had a vital railroad hub, and it had home-based war industries that were building airplane parts.
Manufacturing, yes.
Exactly. So it was entirely a legitimate military target, and at the time, they used what was called saturation bombing because there was no such thing as a smart bomb. Although they did start working on smart bombs in World War II, but at the time,
it wasn't ready yet.
It wasn't ready. If you dropped a bomb, if you wanted to hit a certain building, you had to saturate the entire area with bombs, and so you would hit that building.
It was during the war that somebody developed the site that allowed them to drop the bomb in the immediate vicinity of the target, because it was sheer fucking luck if you hit anything.
Exactly.
Intended to before then.
Exactly.
Because of course you have to release the bomb long before you get to the target. Because by the time you're flying over the target, if you release the bomb, the inertia in the bomb is going to carry it miles away from the target.
Absolutely.
So in order to do that, a chap in the U.S. Air Force, I believe, developed an optical device that allowed them to calculate based on the airplane speed and wind speed, where do I drop this shit so that it hits over there. Before that, you just drop whatever the fuck you have and go and drop some more until you hit something.
Yeah, the only accurate airplanes in World War II were dive bombers, but a dive bomber could only carry one bomb. You couldn't build a 4-engine dive bomber that had a belly full of bombs, because the dive bomb the bomb had to be attached to the belly of the plane, and then what you did was you released it, and then you pulled out of the dive, and the bomb kept going. So there'd be absolutely no way you could have a strategic dive bomber. It wouldn't work.
No. And by the way, we lost a shitload of them because you had to come in so low that you were very vulnerable to flags. So, people have ideas of what war is like based on Hollywood movies.
Yeah.
And very few movies, I have to say, to their credit, there was one, The Iron Cross, in the 70s.
Yeah.
Are fairly, I wouldn't say accurate, but fairly approximate to what it's really like. Iron Cross, it was fairly approximate to what it was really like. And
well, there was a movie called
there's
a movie called Battleground that was published in 48 or 49, and almost all the actors were veterans of World War II, and the extras in the movie were all veterans of the Battle of the Bulge. It follows a company of 12 men as they fight through the Battle of the Bulge, and that movie is considered the most accurate war portrayal ever made. And it's considered boring by today's audiences because there's too much talking. Well, the actual war, you spent most of your time marching or sitting in a truck or sleeping in a tent. And then there would be a few days of rat-tat-tat. But I think Battleground is an excellent film. I love it. But today's audiences, they want something that doesn't really exist in real life, and they think that's more realistic because, like you said, they've picked up these ideas. And okay, there's a movie that's going to come out, and it's about the white supremacists who killed the disc jockey Alan Berg, I think that was his name, and these were Washington State white supremacists, and so the movie's coming out.
Sorry, I just turned bright white.
And well, I mean, this was 40 years ago, and they were killed as dead as Julius Caesar's nuts by white people. But in the movie, the British actor Jude Law is in it, playing a good white man. And then we have a black woman who's instrumental in catching the white supremacists. There were no black women involved in catching these people. It was all white men who caught them and killed them. And I just looked at the trailer, and boy, they're making these guys out there. They're all physically handsome and fit, and posing a threat to everybody, and they called themselves the Order, and they never numbered more than a couple hundred, and they ended up going up in flames in a house, and that was the end of them. And the book that they were all inspired by. The book is called The Turner Diaries.
The Turner Diaries.
What's that? The Turner Diaries. It's a book about a. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, we're having a delay, so I hear silence, and when I start talking, then you come in. I'm sorry about that.
It's okay.
Did you see the alleged white supremacists that were going to kidnap Governor Whitmer, as if anybody would like to have her in the same room with them?
Yeah.
Other than the 6 FBI agents that were part of the gang, did you see what the others looked like?
Yeah, they were like guys with like 50 IQs,
like fucking hobos.
And the whole case was, it turned out they were basically led by the nose, all the way through this whole thing. It was like the worst case of entrapment anyone had ever seen.
Anyone has ever seen. But the thing is, in the movie, all of these white supremacists are like special operation guys, muscular
Exactly.
and handsome and with a military cut. And in real life, they are like the fucking wino sitting in the sidewalk outside the supermarket.
Yeah. No, that's why they didn't stand a chance against the FBI. And this was 40 years ago. The FBI 40 years ago was nothing compared to what it is today in terms of, the tactical teams and everything. But, they've gone and made a movie of it that's going to be released to remind everybody that we now have a Nazi for a president. And it's
like the fuckers who refer to oh God, I'm having a tiny brain fart. AFD, the German party.
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about.
For Deutschland, but
right.
For some reason, I keep getting a German insurance company's name. But anyway, they're referring to them as neo-Nazis.
Yep.
There is a little bit of a fucking problem.
Uh-huh.
Nazism is verboten in Germany. There are no neo-Nazi parties participating in elections.
Alternative for Germany.
Alternative for Deutschland.
AFD.
Yeah, Alternative for Deutschland. They refer to them as neo-Nazis. If they were neo-Nazis, they wouldn't be in an election in Germany, you freaking imbeciles.
Yeah, neo-Nazism is like so illegal. If I'm going to write a book, if I write a military book that will be sold in Germany, I have to make sure that not a single photo shows a swastika. Not even like in World War II, the Germans, they wore an eagle on their chest. It was an eagle, and the eagle was its little feet were holding a little swastika in a circle. And I'm not allowed to show that in any photo that's published in Germany. So, that's how allergic the Germans are to Nazism.
Right, but a neo-Nazi party is about to become the second largest force in German parliament.
Well, see,
basically how that works.
The leftists have destroyed the term neo-Nazi. They through overuse. You're a neo-Nazi. You're a neo-Nazi. You're a neo-Nazi, and now everybody's like, whatever.
Ios is commenting, whenever you see mugshots of white supremacists, it's more like faces of meth. True.
Yeah, exactly.
And the same thing
exactly
as Kelly says, Antifa, skinheads. Yeah, not quite the Aryan look. No. By the way, the Aryan look is Khamenei. just so that we know. But no, everybody's.
Say it again.
The Aryan look is Khamenei.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Literally.
Exactly. Yeah.
But the thing is that we are going to have some changes. The right is going to come in strong in Germany, which is not by coincidence, because the Social Democrats of Scholz are shot. Angela Merkel destroyed the CDU.
Oh yeah.
The Christian Democratic Union. What's left of the CDU are fucking Social Democrats too. People are up to here with this shit. They have the immigration problem they have the jihadist problem, they have the energy problem. Their industry is in shambles. Volkswagen just closed the factory, put 40,000 people on the street. Their economy is in the tank. This is something that the Germans have not seen in this generation. The insecurity in the streets, plus insecurity at work, plus insecurity in economic and financial terms, is something that is quite a fucking novelty for Germans. Because at one point it seemed that they were going to outgrow any problem. Not any fucking more. They're very fucking upset.
No.
And the Greens and the Social Democrats are about to find out to what degree.
The Germans were always very proud of their industry. It was the German industriousness that rebuilt Germany after the war. That's what they told themselves. And when you had people like Merkel who were like, imposing green madness on them, and I don't know, it's
their fucking fault.
Yep.
It's their fucking fault for electing a Honecker child. Because Merkel was brought up and raised in communist Germany under Honecker, and she was a closet communist. I don't care. Just by her actions. Now, the stupid Social Democrats placed a huge bet on Russia for supply of energy and China for a market. And guess what? They're fucked. Their exports are tanking. Their energy is going through the roof. They're still cheating on European sanctions and getting gas from Russia. By the way, as of January 1st, that's going to change dramatically. Did you know that?
Say it again.
As of January 1st, the ability of countries like Germany to cheat on the sanctions by getting gas from Russia is about to be dramatically changed. Ukraine will finally cut off the gas starting January 1st.
Yep.
And idiots in the US, why they didn't do it yet? No, because they had to protect Europeans. You see, if the Ukrainians had cut off Europe's supply of gas from Russia on day one, it would have been dramatic for Russia, but it would also have been dramatic for Germany, France, Hungary, Poland. And
tens of thousands of people would have died in Europe.
Yes.
That's what's happened.
Now, in the past 2 years, alternative sources have been found and developed. And now Europe is getting energy from the Gulf, from Tunisia, from America, finally, what should have always been with LNG. You know, they're building terminals in Argentina for LNG for Europe. Apparently, Argentina has just found like the largest fucking gas field in the world in a place called Vaca Muerta, on ironically very near where the Nazis took refuge in Bariloche. So now that they have alternative sources, they can afford to do it and give the Russians another stick up their ass without destroying Europe. So it's going to happen. But Germany, they fucked themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They destroyed they had 30% of German energy was produced in nuclear power plants. They closed and dismantled them.
Mm-hmm.
They literally shut off 30%. Now they're buying electricity from France, which is 80% of nuclear origin, and much of it right next to the German fucking border.
Mm-hmm.
Then they committed to wind energy. And in northern Germany, same as in some Scandinavian countries, there has been no wind in the past few months.
Mm-hmm.
The production of electricity dropped 20% because there is no fucking wind. What do they have to do? Go out of their homes and blow?
Well, my brother signed up for solar energy that he would sell back to the power company. And so he got these solar panels installed on his roof. And these things break about once a month. About once a month, something goes wrong with them. They have to be cleaned. You have to climb up on the roof about once a month and sponge them off. And then on top of it, the you're not making that much of a deal. It's like if he said if he had to do it all over again, he wouldn't.
You know where I saw my worst hailstorm ever in my entire life?
In a huge solar farm.
Well, no. There were no solar farms back then. In Nevada.
Yeah.
They were the size of fucking baseballs.
Yeah.
Wait until one of those drops on your brother's rooftop.
Well, it's happening in Texas. I saw a video, and there was a massive hailstorm in the solar farm, and every single panel was shattered. Every single one.
It's happening all over the world, by the way.
Yep.
Because hail is not an everyday occurrence.
Nope.
But it occurs pretty much everywhere eventually. Whether it is, every other month or every other year, eventually you're going to get a hailstorm. I don't care where you are. And when you do, your solar panel is going to be shit.
Mm-hmm.
Period. And then you're going to find out that disposing of the damn shit is not that easy.
No, because none of it can be recycled.
No. Now, I suppose that in Saudi or in Western Sahara is a different story. And probably the chances of hail are not that much. If Io is still with us, maybe he can tell me, because I'm sure he knows that. If there is the possibility of hail in the Sahara or the Arabian Peninsula. But in Europe, in the US, you gotta be kidding. I don't care where you go, you're screwed.
Well, think of those stupid windmills. Either there's no wind or they have to shut them off because the wind is too powerful. I've seen these incredible videos that show the towers blowing up and falling in slow motion, because they got set on fire because the wind was blowing the blades too strong, and the whole thing caught fire and it just like starts to fall. And I don't know.
There you go. One of my favorite peeves in England was the wind turbines in Yorkshire.
Mm-hmm.
It's such an idyllic countryside. These farms between mostly medieval cities, with sheep farming and all that jazz and the rolling hills. It's beautiful, amazingly beautiful. And then they put the windmills on it, and it looked like shit. And what he's saying is, in the UK, because of the storms, and because of the storms, have the wind turbines self-destructed.
Yeah.
The blades fell off, motor generators burned out, solar panels were also destroyed by the buttload. In the UAE, no hail, but keeping sand off the solar panels is difficult. Of course, there had to be a problem. Sandstorms. Yeah, that would make the solar panels work fine, right?
Well, these solar farms that I've seen in Death Valley or wherever, they're fitted with these automatic washers, but
Yeah.
that means a human has to go out there and fill up the tank in the automatic washer, and the it's run on an engine, so that you have to maintain the engine. And what do you get in return?
Let me see. So Californians cannot take a shower to save water, but you have to use the water to constantly wash the solar panels. Am I getting this shit right?
Yeah. No, I mean California, on the Young Turks, the woman Anna Kasparian is slowly evolving into a conservative, and she just had a big rant because people are pushing Kamala Harris as governor of California, and it's like that's
No, they cannot be that stupid.
if she runs, she'll get elected. I have absolutely no doubt.
Well, whoever runs as a Democrat will get elected. If you put Bozo the clown, you're going to have the first governor with a red nose.
Well, apparently it's going to come down to Kamala versus Antonio Villaraigosa. And Villaraigosa was the mayor of Los Angeles.
Yep.
And this guy was I mean, he was dumb as a box of rocks.
Dumb fuck as they come. Wasn't he an attorney general first?
Yeah.
He's one of the dumbest fucks that I've ever observed.
Yeah. He invented his last name. His real name is Villar, but he married a woman named Raigosa, so he changed his name to VR Raigosa. Yep.
How cute.
Yeah. Then, of course, he immediately stepped out on her multiple times, and then she divorced him, and now he's back to Tony Villar, but his name recognition is Via Raigosa.
Yeah.
But
what a fucking imbecile.
Yeah, no, vote for Kamala because they need the first black female fill in the blank. That's what they.
Maybe you get lucky and Javier Becerra throws his head in the ring. It's got to be a big head. He's got a big head.
Yeah. Oh, it's. I saw today.
And you have the first Chicano governor.
I saw, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. They produced a documentary for Netflix. And it's about the history of polo. And apparently it's unwatchable. And
anything with those two is unwatchable.
Well, the reviewer said he just wondered if during the press conference, if she was attacking people swinging her giant head like a mace. And I realized he's right. She has a giant head. It's like shocking how big her head is.
I used to watch Prince Charles play polo. I was never a player, but I used to play. Kind of like a weekend thing. And I used to follow and go to the World Championship, and I saw Prince Charles a few times. It was an interesting event because in the polo matches there wasn't a large public. We were generally standing up,
Mm-hmm.
and there was an almost intimacy with everybody. And I cannot imagine for the life of me what Meghan Markle, who would have not qualified to be one of the servicing girls waiting on the sidelines for the $20 blowjob, could do with it. I mean, what does she know about polo?
Well, she's another one. She's like a complete fraud. She's like completely invented her background, and she's a notorious witch who's impossible to work with.
Yeah.
She
But
hires.
did they play polo in the trailer park?
See, this is the thing. It's like, why polo of all things? But see, Netflix, they signed a deal with Meghan and Harry for, you know, $100
Millions.
or whatever it was, and they never produced anything. They produced they did a series about themselves, and the ratings were like through the floor. You know, I don't
Yeah,
know.
they had to try to recoup their money somehow. But again, Harry probably knows about polo. You know, British royals play polo habitually. Um, but I don't know. Look at a lot of modern actors, actresses. There are large number who are short with giant bubble heads. Once you notice, you can unsee it. Oh, fuck,
Yeah.
he's white. Oh, thank you, Ayo. Now you pointed out to the obvious fact of the bubble heads. By the way, I forgot to ask the audience uh, for their ah, how shall I say this? Forgiveness for my tardiness today. I fell asleep, and I told Thomas uh, when I desperately realized what time it was. I woke up and said, "What? Oh fuck!" And the thing is that I had like a 45 minutes to go, so I said, I'm going to sit down and have some coffee and watch TV for a half an hour. And I did. And uh, there was a thing called The Good Place, which I ended up randomly. Um, Ted Danson was there, you know, the one, the man with no taste in women who once married Whoopi Goldberg.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's much older, and incidentally, now that Ayo mentions this, he's skinny with a bubble head too. And everybody has a bubble head there. It is the stupidest thing ever. But I noticed it's amazing. Within 15 minutes, I was in cloud nine. I was out for the count. This works better than Ambien. So I strongly recommend this shit for anybody who needs to fall asleep. It's so stupid and boring that if it doesn't put you to sleep in 15 minutes, you have to cut down on the amount of amphetamines you're taking.
Yeah, when movies started routinely becoming 3 hours long, that was like there was a gangster movie about Jimmy Hoffa, and it had Robert De Niro and Al Pacino in it, and they'd used these computers to computer de-age them, and that thing was 3 hours long, and I'm not going to sit through a 3 hour long Robert De Niro movie. Like Robert De Niro has played the same character for like 50 years now.
His entire life.
Yeah. And
he's like George C. Scott. They play themselves.
Yeah. And I like Al Pacino, but okay, I've seen a couple.
Marginally.
I've seen a couple Jimmy Hoffa movies, dramas about the death of Jimmy Hoffa, and you know it's pretty clear that, I mean, he was put into a rendering plant. You know, that's the most plausible theory. They didn't want anything left of him, so they didn't want to bury him anywhere. So they put him in a rendering plant, and he went out and was like spread. He was fed to hogs or something, you know.
Yeah, no, used as fertilizer. By the
Exactly.
way, that movie is the one that ends in the diner that they
Jack
lure
Nicholson.
Hoffa to the limo.
That was the Jack Nicholson version of Jimmy Hoffa's life,
Okay.
and it ends in the diner, and he's gonna do a favor for some young teamster, and the young teamster turns out to be the hitman, and
Yep.
so and that movie had Danny DeVito as Jack Nicholson's assistant, and Danny DeVito can't help his height, but Danny DeVito is trying to play a heavy, and Danny DeVito is this tall, and
It's like 4 feet tall. Yes.
yeah, and that means you're born for comedic acting. I mean, I'm sorry, and he's a great comedic actor, but
He was great in Taxi.
yeah, no, Taxi. Every single actor in that series was a brilliant actor, and DeVito did tons of comedic movies. He did a very funny movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger called Twins, which is very
they look alike.
exactly. Yeah, they're exactly alike. But
exactly alike.
yeah, somebody played a video. They just caught Schwarzenegger walking along the street, and he's got a white beard now, and they were shocked at how old he. Schwarzenegger is almost 80 years old. You know, to me, he looks fine for an 80-year-old. Big deal. I'm sure his joints. He looked like he was creaking a little as he walked, but that's because his joints are all worn out. And also didn't he have a pig valve put in his heart at some point?
Yes, he oinks every now and then too because of it.
Yeah,
he did have heart trouble, but listen, he's 80 years old. What the fuck do you want?
Exactly. This is what's so weird about it. It's like we're all on the same train. If you're lucky, you'll be 80 years old.
Yeah. I've always been 15 years behind him.
Yeah, I want to live to be in my 90s. I want to see what's going to happen. I'm interested in seeing. I want to see the Middle East in 20 years.
I want to see what comes after Viagra.
After what?
Viagra. Hey, I haven't tried it yet, but eventually, who knows?
Well, it's I don't know. Maybe Thailand is the answer.
Oh fuck no. No. I'm not going to Thailand. Anybody my age who goes to Thailand is instantly suspect.
Oh, of course.
So I'm not. There are places that I've decided not to ever go back because if I do at this age, nobody's going to believe me anyway. And that includes Recife, Havana, Thailand, because that's where middle-aged people who can't get laid go to get laid cheap. And in the case of Thailand, not necessarily with the opposite sex and not necessarily with an adult.
Yeah, Germans.
Germans, yeah,
Thailand.
you have charter flights from Canada.
In Canada, yeah, all the moral preeners, they all go to Thailand.
Yeah, all the moral preeners, they have charters of middle-aged men who go to fuck boys in Thailand.
Yeah.
By the plane load.
Yeah.
God, those people give me them.
Well, they should just be embarrassed. They should be ashamed of themselves.
Well, sometimes the Supreme Court in Austria just vacated a sentence of a pedophile who fucked a 10-year-old boy because in the evidence presented at trial, there is no proof that the boy did not consent.
Yeah.
A 10-year-old boy consenting. You have to prove or disprove consent from a 10-year-old. Anything cannot consent.
Well,
by definition.
It used to be that it didn't matter whether the child consented or not. It's illegal
Right.
to have sex with a child, you know.
Statutory rape. The minor consented, but it's still a fucking minor. Their consent is worthless.
Yeah.
A 10-year-old boy giving consent. Sure, fuck me in the ass. I want to try that. What the fuck is that? How sick are these people?
They're sick. Their history is replete with sickness, a sort of sickness that we've never equaled. So, you know.
No. The depravity that you see in Europe, in America, I don't know if it is because we haven't had the time or the inclination. But to be fair, we never sunk into the depths of the depravity of the old continent.
Yeah. That was one of the reasons we left is,
yes.
You know.
Yes. The vast majority of us, at any rate. Now, speaking of living, where do you think they're going to start with the deportations next month?
They're going to start on day one, according to Tom Homan.
Yeah, but where do you think they're going to start? Are they going to start in Colorado with Tren de Aragua? Are they going to start in Maryland with MS-13?
Maybe they'll do a whole bunch simultaneously. I was just thinking about this. During the BLM city burning fad, Trump created these strike teams, and these strike teams were made up of trigger pullers from all over the federal government. So you had say a guy from the Coast Guard boarding parties. You had a guy from he was a prison bureau sniper. You had a guy from the railroad retirement board SWAT team, and there were dozens and dozens of these strike teams that could be. They were controlled by one of I think they were controlled by the we don't have a Ministry of the Interior, so who is controlling them?
Who?
I can't remember.
Our
I can't
Minister of
remember which
Interior would be
department.
Homeland Security.
Yeah, I think it was Homeland Security. So these strike teams were based, they were placed all over the country strategically, and they would be sent in if and when the governor or mayor allowed them to be sent in. If the word came out to call in the feds, these strike teams were stationed nearby, and they would just hit really hard. And I think Trump is going to do the same thing with the deportations. I think there's going to be these mixed strike teams of feds.
Oh yeah,
plucked from all the various.
And people don't realize something. Right here where I'm doing this, and right there where you're doing this, you're in Coast Guard jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
The Coast Guard and Border Patrol both have the authority to go into your home if they suspect a threat to the country, and illegal or whatever. It is amazing the amount of resources that can be mastered in no time at all for about 80% of our populated areas.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody says, "Pase capitatus," go fuck yourself, because we're in the border area.
Yeah.
And in the border area, different rules apply. New York City is in a border area because it has a fucking ocean right next to it.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to be interesting because, and that's why I'm anxiously awaiting to see how they solve this quandary, because there is a ginormous toolbox
Mm-hmm.
that anybody who wants to do this can use.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And most people don't even realize it.
Well, today, Trump's lawyer, what's her name? The one with the Middle Eastern name.
Alina, the best tits in any courthouse in America.
She she warned the Democrats that this time it wasn't going to be, Trump wasn't going to be responding the same way he did the first time, and so
No,
everybody was notice that they were gonna hit
they're
back.
going to drop the hammer. They're going to drop the hammer on them. And if anybody
Yep.
has any questions, ask Stephanopoulos.
Yep.
And he has to.
Oh yeah,
He owes it to the country to do it.
definitely.
He owes it to the country to do it. These people have to be sent to jail. We cannot be like the Austrians, letting criminals out for some bullshit. Oh, the 10-year-old, we don't know if he consented. Go fuck yourselves. And the same thing here. I cannot sue Lame Street media characters for the lies they tell about, say, Trump. But he can. And he ought to do it. Because today is him, tomorrow is you and I, and what the fuck do we do?
Yeah.
Are we going to wait until they debunk us again?
Yeah.
No. They have to go, and I know that Pam Bondi is going to go after the pro-Hamas assholes everywhere. Somebody saying there they should start in Chicago. Why the fuck not? Getting illegals in Chicago is like fishing in a bathtub. Shouldn't take a lot of work. But yeah, they need to do it, and they need to do it now for all our sakes. What else we have? Oh, how about the guy in France who drugged his wife and sold her services to strangers? That son of a bitch. And out of 50 people that she fingered, only one was acquitted. The other 49 were sent to jail. The son of a bitch abused his wife to the point of selling her off to clients and friends. And that woman was raped repeatedly over the years by 50 people at least. Do you have any idea the courage that was required of that woman to actually bring the case to court in France?
Sure.
Nobody expected she would be able to win the case, but she wanted to expose the ring. And it turns out 49 of the 50 assholes are now in jail. Congratulations to that very courageous woman. I much as I am disgusted by people like Jane Carroll, who bring up false accusations to either profit or gain notoriety, nothing is equal to the contempt that I have for men who exploit women. Nothing. And for once, the French seem to have done the right thing. I'm amazed. Homan said that Chinatown is going to be first. That makes sense. Chinatown, where? I don't know, and I don't care. Maybe we should start with the Chinese police stations. Yes, Kelly, she won the cases this past week. And yes, they drugged her and used violence. But anyway, enough of that. You can find it on the newspaper. Can Trump bring back soldiers who Biden kicked out for not being vaccinated? That is already been done, poser. You're not well informed. Now, whether they want to come back or not, I don't know. Frankly, I don't give a shit. Because the way I understood service in the military, You don't question legal orders, and the legal order that you need to be vaccinated, you have to follow. I don't give a shit. You don't get to choose. You are not in a vocational school in your town. You're in the fucking army. If they're going to deploy you to a place in Africa or in South America, they're going to pump you full of vaccines, cholera, malaria, some of them pretty fucking nasty, TB. And you don't have a word. You cannot say, no, I'm not taking it. It's not an option. If you are a flight attendant and your airline flies into Peru or Brazil or India, if you're going to be on a line that takes you there, you have to get your vaccines, same as you have to have a valid passport or you're out of a job. You don't get to choose. So I have zero sympathy for active duty personnel who refuse the vaccine. And I believe that the army had every fucking right to say, if you don't have the vaccine, go home. Any other consideration as to the quality of the vaccine is for a different conversation. But as far as the authority to do it, they did. And as much as I despise the lockdowns, as much, and I'm not saying it now because Thomas and I have been since April of 2020 saying the same thing consistently. Our opposition to lockdowns, our opposition to the abuses of power, our opposition to governors forcing people to stay at home. But I never had any problem with legal orders. I never had any problem with people exercising legitimate authority. Did you, Thomas, by the way? Am I alone on this one?
No, I mean, the military is different from everyday life, and they shouldn't have forced people to get vaccinated. I mean, there were companies that forced people to get vaccinated, and people tried to bring lawsuits and they lost. If you're good,
You don't have the right to work for me. If you don't like my rules, work for somebody else.
Yeah.
Now, for the military, can you imagine you deploy the military to, I don't know, Cingonella in Italy. And somebody says, no, I'm not going to Italy. What do you think will happen?
Well, they're out. They're cashiered.
Well, it's the same thing. They're being deployed to India. They have to take the cholera vaccine. I don't like vaccines. I don't take vaccines. What do you think will happen?
Well, I mean, we spent a lot of time in Africa, and you better be vaccinated before you go to Africa because there's creepy crawlies there that'll kill you dead if you're not vaccinated.
Bingo. So cholera, typhus, malaria, you get the full menu. And some of those can make you sick for a while.
Oh yeah.
The cholera one is a bitch.
Yeah.
So fucking what? Do you have the option to not take it?
Not if you're in the military.
Bingo. And the same thing applies to the COVID vaccine. I don't care.
No, it's apparently the first thing that Hegseth is going to do is he's going to root out all the DEI hires and the people pushing this stuff. And, it sort of goes hand in hand because if you look back at that period, there was a lot of hysteria that was completely unwarranted because I remember what Fauci and Bricks were saying at the beginning, or Bix or whatever her name was. I remember everything they said at the
Bricks.
bricks. I remember everything they said at the beginning, and then they went through this phase where everyone went crazy, and then now they've returned to what they were saying at the beginning, that masks and social distancing don't do anything.
Don't
Uh,
work.
the vaccinations and the boosters, the rate of infection is the same for both the vaccinated and the unvaccinated, and you know we there's a lot of people who think that was this nefarious sort of test to see if they could make us all submit. But number one, it wasn't. It was just mass hysteria. Number
Yeah.
two, Americans are never going to go through that again. If the government tomorrow announces, oh, we're going to have voluntary shutdowns, and you know everybody's going to say, fuck you, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
You know.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
Been there, done that. Anyway, we have 5 minutes left. So let me issue my uh, fundraising appeal, and then I'll ask you for the last question or last subject. Um, Folks, if you've been watching us for nearly 3 hours, it's because you like this. You find it entertaining. This is like the movies. It's free to watch, however, it's not free to produce. We always have to have stuff done. And sometimes we don't, to our collective detriment, for lack of funds. So please support us. You're the only source of income that we have. We have no advertising in our forum. We collect no data. We sell obviously no data because we don't freaking collect it. We don't have sponsors. We don't owe anything to anyone but our members and our users. So please, if you can, click, if you are in Odyssey, click on support or send a tip through with a $sign through the chat, or join as a member of the channel and get some stuff that is exclusively for members, including, I'm almost done uploading it, Thomas, all of the old beer blathers, all of the stuff that we're talking about, what we were saying in March of 2020. Well, it's
Mm-hmm.
going to be there for you to watch uh, for members only. Now, and other stuff, because I'm doing it. I'm uploading hundreds and hundreds of hours.
Mm-hmm.
It took a while, and I'm trying. Thomas, I'm trying to transcribe them so that
Ah.
people can do searches in the text and then go to
Mm-hmm.
the video and know where to find it. It's going to be pretty nifty. Now, that said, if you are in Twitter, the only way that you can support us is going to my timeline and subscribing to my timeline. Is $5 per month. Uh, I'm not posting much for subscribers yet there because there aren't that many, but soon we're going to have something for subscribers there. But you're still supporting this channel and SQV. And in SQV, you can go to our website. Let me see if I find it here. Yeah, quadverum.com/support us. And there you can make a one-time donation, a recurrent donation, whatever rocks your boat. So we'd appreciate it. And to those who already have, thank you so much. It is your contributions that make all of this possible. And having done my uh, shameless request for funds, please send some moolah. Thomas, do you like a last subject, or that we forgot, or just go straight for the last word?
Yeah, I can't think of anything we forgot really. We were sort of talking about the inability to learn, and it looks like the Democrats are going to go even more radical as we head into the future, which is fine because, I mean, who do they have on the bench to run for president?
I want Kamala to run again with AOC for vice president.
Yeah,
that would be my dream team.
No, Tim Waltz said he couldn't understand why they lost to a billionaire because Americans are supposed to hate billionaires, and that
Wow.
he himself was poor. He owned nothing, and that should have been appealing to everybody. And it was just like, well, Tim, for one thing, you're a really bizarre man. You're very, very off-putting. And for another thing, Trump's status as a billionaire didn't factor into it at all, one way or the other. He was just Trump. He was Trump. He said what was on his mind. He did what he promised. He kept his promises. He's extremely competent at his job, exceptionally competent. And his personal wealth, it literally doesn't come into it on one side or the other, either for or against.
I'm so sick and tired of communist little fuckers trying to revive the class struggle bullshit. I'd rather have a president who comes in with billions, like Trump, and doesn't take much, than a Clinton or an Obama or a Biden who come into the White House broke and leave with hundreds of millions.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
I have no problem. And being a capitalist, I admire people who make money legally. I don't like people who steal. I don't like people who run Ponzi schemes. I don't like Bernie Madoff. But people who make their money their old-fashioned way by providing a service or a product that people want to buy, I have no freaking problem with. And they're not my enemy. Mark Zuckerberg, who spends $500 million buying votes for fascists, I may have a problem with. Not because he's a billionaire, but because the way he uses his money.
Mm-hmm.
Trump, I appreciate his sacrifice. He doesn't need this shit.
No.
He could be having the life of everybody's wet dream and not have to deal with the likes of Tim Waltz.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I just think it's great that the Democrats are still unable to figure out how or why they lost, so they're just going to keep going in the direction they're going, and that's good news for us.
Hey, if he wants to keep going on the class struggle, I don't think that has ever worked in America, and I don't think it will.
No.
But anyway, so guys, we're there, and don't forget tomorrow the quad meet, where not members but anybody in SQV in the forum can come in on camera and have an open discussion on any subject. There is no agenda. So tomorrow the quad meet at 10:30 p.m. and Tuesday VIP room for members only at 9:30 p.m. and Thursday 9:30 p.m. yapping, and then on the following Saturday we're going to be back here with Thomas, provided that he survives the fireworks that he's going to be subject to over the next week. And that brings me, Thomas, to I'm going to see most of our audience tomorrow and Tuesday, but Merry Christmas, my friend.
Merry Christmas, and the fireworks will be bad, but I'll live through them the way I always do.
Yep.
So there we go.
There we go. I hope Santa brings you peace and quiet for at least a couple of hours on the 25th. That would be, but and I wanted to make a point because we're not particularly how do I say this? We're not particularly fond of any organized religion. It's no skin off our backs, but I do like it when people strive to be nice to each other, even
I,
if it is 24 hours.
yeah,
Uh,
it's good.
I went to an English pub this week, and as I was living with my wife in the middle of the noise of people drinking their beer and cheers, a little old man that looked so fragile in that crowd, very small built, little kind of old prune, looked at me, smiled with a smile that puts happiness in you, and says, "Merry Christmas to you." And of course, I had to answer, "And Merry Christmas to you, sir. Thank you so much." And I left there with a smile and feeling the better for it. What's wrong with that?
I don't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah. I see people are wishing you Merry Christmas because they won't see you until after that. And I have to check, by the way, I said Tuesday VIP room, but I have to check if that is Christmas Eve. I'll probably move it, but we'll discuss it tomorrow. So thank you, Thomas. Love this discussion with you. Merry Christmas. And do you have a last word?
Diablerie.
Diablerie. I like that one. The opposite of what we were just discussing. Good night, my friend.